Heading to the beach this weekend, you might see a new sport that's taking the country by storm.
It's called Spikeball.
This looks like one of those sports that you just want to say, get out of my, let me try this, and then you're playing it for like 2 or 3 hours. I mean, this was once simply another unknown lawn game of the 80s. Spikeball now has 300 tournaments nationwide. It has gone from just being a toy to becoming a legitimate sport.
The way that I like to describe Spikeball to a new player, like a beginner, is it's kind of like volleyball, but instead of hitting over the net, you're hitting onto the net. But the main gist of it is that you're in teams of 2, and you're hitting it back and forth, and as soon as it hits the net, it's the other team's turn, and you're trying to make it so they can't get it back on.
Play on the grass, you can play inside, we played in the field house, you can play in squash courts. It's really fun to play there. You can modify the rules and have it bounce off the walls. My personal favorite place to play is on the beach. One, it's just great energy. You can go be out in the sun having fun, and the fact that you're playing on sand means you can lay out and dive for the ball and not get hurt. You can also do fun things like people will sometimes dig a hole in the sand. There's a lot of creative things you can do with different locations. Serving is a really big part of the game, and as people develop new serves, they kind of take over the sport. So when I started, it was very basic, and the cut serve came out, and that was kind of what the entire Spikeball community was working on. And now I'd say it's the reverse cut, and every day you'll see new creative videos of someone coming up with something new, and then you'll see people around the world trying to replicate it. Some people will call Spikeball serve ball because it's becoming so dominantly about serving.
People see Spikeball and they want to get involved, and it's a good time, and I think it's bound to grow, given the culture and given how easy it is to set up and play and how quick it is to learn.
I didn't invent Spikeball, I brought it back to life. So I first saw it when I was like 14, way back in 1989. It wasn't until 2003 that, I was on a trip with some friends and sort of the light bulb went off there, and we got talking about like, it'd be really cool if we brought this thing back to life. We just talked about it for like 4 years before we actually did anything. I didn't start Spikeball until I think I was 32 or 33, something like that. And we raised about $100,000 total. That was between like me, my brother, my cousin, and a couple childhood friends. And that's not enough for anybody to live on. And I didn't quit my job on day one and go full-time Spikeball. I ran it for 5 years as a side job. I didn't really know if the company was going to work. I was married, had a couple kids, and man, quitting a nice cushy corporate sales job to join this risky, that'd be way too much risk. I didn't think it was going to become like a full-time job and become the big thing that I say big in quotes. I thought it would be a fun project and it would kind of forever be this side project, but I'm as blown away as anybody about how far we've made it.
Spikeball is such a new sport that it allows new players to come in at 17, 18 years old, even kids in college, and reach the high levels quickly. And that's a big reason why Spikeball has been a part of my life, is because it's the first sport that I've been able to really take and play seriously. When I graduated high school, we had started a Spikeball club, me and a couple of my friends, and we would just play casually. And that was one of my goals, is when I got to college, I wanted to join the Spikeball team because I'd looked in and I'd seen that there were some collegiate competitions. And I came and I walked around the Tiger Activities Fair. I'm like, where is Spikeball Club? I must be blind, I can't see it. And I was like, wow, is it really possible that RIT doesn't have a club? So I hopped on the website, and sure enough, it didn't exist. So I was like, well, shoot, if I could start a club, I could create a space for myself and other people who like Spikeball to come play regularly, really get better, and we'll just kind of see where it goes from there. When I started the club, one of my main goals was to take us to the collegiate regionals and hopefully nationals. So we spent about a year in the club as a recreational club, building up to that point. And then as we got more players and people kept getting better and better, we felt ready to go compete. We've had players go to various tournaments around the state and in close states like Pennsylvania. I've placed first in one. I believe we have a couple other teams who've podiumed. So, the level's improving.
I remember looking at their Instagram posts from like the national tournaments when I first started, which was only a couple of years ago. And there were maybe like 100 kids, which was huge, like when we were thinking about it, because our club was like 10 people. And then this past year, the Nationals picture that they posted, I think was taken with a drone, and it had like probably 500 people, and that's all people who traveled across the country to be part of that tournament.
The first Spikeball Worlds tournament was going to be in summer 2020, and that was a really big deal, and unfortunately COVID stopped that from happening, but that is the next step. So the Spikeball and SRA, which is the Spikeball Roundnet Association, is planning to host the Worlds in 2021, depending on what the pandemic looks like. And that's the first step. And then from there, we are trying to go to the Olympics.
Recently, the IRF has been formed. That is the International Roundnet Federation. They had a call last week, and I believe there were 30 countries represented on this call. I forget their exact tagline, but I believe it is paving the pathway to the Olympics. As you can imagine, there's a list a mile long of everything a sport has to do in order to qualify. I'm not going to predict a year yet for the Olympics, but it will happen.
People aren't being signed to teams and getting paid big salaries. There's not high stakes to perform well, and so people come to these tournaments and be nice and have fun, and you know, people are there to play spikeball because we all enjoy that, but it's just as much about the community and making connections with other people, potentially donating profits to a good organization. Really however people can help out.
I love the spikeball community, and I love that you can pick up a net, put it together, and throw it down anywhere. I like that it attracts a lot of like different athletes from various sports, and anytime the weather's nice, you go outside, you run some spike.
And the sport is growing very rapidly. I mean, 3 years ago, probably no one would know what spikeball is, and now it's a regular game that you see in high schools, colleges, all across the country. You know, there's a spikeball Facebook group. I see more and more posts every day of people in countries all over the world, like India or countries in South America, saying, hey, who's in the area, who plays spikeball? And you can kind of see the global network really coming together.
You know, there's nothing more gratifying than walking down the street or walking by a park and seeing some random people using your product. Sometimes I'll just keep going. Other times I'll stop and introduce myself and, you know, just say thanks for being a customer. Sometimes I'll see people in the airport wearing a spikeball shirt or having a backpack. So that's fantastic. And also hearing from parents. You know, we got a note a while ago from a woman saying, you know, thank you so much for making this product. My kids absolutely love video games, and they play what she considers way too much, and they weren't getting outside to play. They weren't getting any physical activity. But spikeball was quickly filling that void. So it's nice when not only the players appreciate the product, but the parents do as well. And I've heard stories, I know a few myself personally, but I've heard other stories of at least 5 or 6 people that met their spouse through the game somehow. And knowing that I had a teeny tiny part of that, you know, helping someone find their life partner, that's just incredible. You know, that just feels really, really nice.